Ren, it's been a while. Welcome back to Beers with Bill. I'm happy to that you agreed to come back on the show again. We're going to
Uh,
start with True Believer.
yes, we are. I'm amazed that you're even having me back because I feel like last time I got sweary. So,
Oh no, I told you from day one that your story needs to be told and told many times. So and we're never gonna ever regret that. I mean, I still remember the first day I met you.
oh man, um, that would have been I was selling for Kensington Brewing,
Yep.
and it was the same day I met Ed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so that's a good 7 or 8 years ago now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, time flies.
It certainly does. I'm not going to say we've been having fun because
Yeah, everything's on fire and it's terrible.
well, there was going to be a day of reckoning, and we've run into those.
Yeah,
We've run
yeah, we
into
really
those.
have.
Do you do you want to make a comment on True Believer, or do you want to just have a conversation about what's going on?
I can quickly say that it's one of my favorites. If you know me well, you know I can't drink sours, and Rob thankfully always has a beer that I can drink. And so this one and Fresh Hell are the two that I can currently drink. They're both in my fridge, and I love them lots. I love them almost as much as I love Rob.
Well, cannot help but love Rob. That's for sure.
Yes,
You've been busy over the last year.
a little bit. Yeah.
Can you kind of bring us up to speed? What's going on?
Yeah. So last year obviously was Black Lives Matter and George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and then subsequently the Derek Chauvin trial. So just kind of working with a lot of breweries that were like, yay, Black people. We don't know why, but yay, Black people, and having to kind of walk them through it and explain that that's just not a way to start things. Um, and so that was kind of May, yeah, May and through till about October, and then I had kind of a slower period, and the year started off like okay. It was kind of dipped my toe back into things and was feeling pretty good. And in the last few weeks, there's an Instagram account called Rat Magnet, and she asked a very innocent question and just said, "Hey, ladies, have you ever faced sexism in beer?" And it was a Pandora's box. It opened up, and it wasn't just women who were commenting. It was people from all different walks of life. Several of my Indigenous brewery friends also commented, and it just was everything from, you know, racism and sexism to assault to harassment to rape in some cases. And when it started, it was pretty innocent. It was a lot of people just kind of being like, these little things have happened, and I commented also saying these are the racist things that I went through, and there's a ton more things, and I didn't name anyone. And then suddenly people started naming places and saying this person at this brewery did this thing, and the second that started, it just opened the floodgates of a lot of naming. And I've got some American clients, so the last couple of weeks have been crazy. I was on vacation last week, but I wasn't. So I was helping write copy for things last week to put out statements, both for Canada and for the States. And I think that the interesting part with what was happening about all of that reckoning is that not a lot of Canadian breweries got named. There were only two initially that were named publicly. One is Forefathers, which everyone knows about, and then the other one is Bridge Brewing, that if you're in BC, you know about. And a lot of breweries out here got really cocky about it and had said, well, we're not named, we're good people. And it was like, yeah, the Canadian brewing scene is small enough that if you name someone, it can get back to you. And I've worked at 6 breweries, and I have stories from all 6 breweries I've worked at. And I will never say anything publicly about what's happened in all these places. And it's not just, what's happened with staff. I mean, some are, but it's a lot of beer festivals. Like, I've had death threats. I've had guys be like, pour me the 4 ounces or I'll find you at your car and rape you. Like, there's like weird, just, it's a 4 ounce pour of beer. That's how mad you are about this. So really going through it and just kind of hearing that stuff and trying to get Canadian breweries, and obviously we're in Ontario, so getting Ontario breweries to understand it and take it seriously has been really interesting. A couple more stories have come out. There's one that got posted on Twitter today that was a repost from Instagram, and it's a brewery in Nova Scotia. And a group of us were like, we know exactly what brewery that is. I am 98% sure I know the person who posted and the things that she's gone through. So it's, you know, it's coming closer. And I'm hoping that this is the wake up call, but I'm also not super optimistic that this will make changes that need to happen because we go through waves, right? So last year it was BIPOC, and we need more diversity, and we need to see more of this, and we need to see more of this person, and I don't think it was really happening. Still, we kind of talk about it. I mean, obviously, I'm still being hired for it to talk about it, but I'm hoping that this changes some stuff. But there's still a lot of breweries that are digging their heels in that just don't want to say anything.
I hear you. I troll you online, you know that, eh?
Yes.
And it just, while you were talking, brought to mind the one thing that you said, that it doesn't start here. It has to start over there.
Yeah.
So
it's
how
a
do we
lot.
get how do we get people over there? How do we get people to realize that it starts with understanding what you're not doing properly?
I think that, you know, we all lie to ourselves, and we all tell ourselves that we're really good people, but you can't rest on that. Like, someone has to tell you you're a good person. It's the same way you can't be like, I'm an ally. Someone has to tell you you're an ally, and it can be taken away, right? Like, you're not going to be a good person 24/7, and you're not going to be an ally 24/7. And I think that the breweries have to understand that if we talk about a sense of community, what does that community look like? Is it a gated community that only certain people can come into, or is it super open where you're like, yo, come and hang out, like, just don't trash the joint? And I think that because so many people are starting from that stance of, but I'm a good person, it stops things. No one, you know, I mean, I literally today had a fight with a really good friend who owns a brewery, and he was like, but we're good people and we're trying to make changes. And I was like, cool, who else knows that you're a good person? You have to show it, and you have to continuously work at it. And I think that breweries just kind of have to like take this moment and be like, it's not a personal slight. The industry is broken. It is horribly broken. It has been since the day I joined. I can't see it becoming this amazing moment anytime soon. And I think that's because people keep refusing to say, I am part of the problem. And I think that's the first step. You know, the first step is admitting the problem. It's like the 12 steps, right? Like, you're part of the problem. And regardless of how nice you are, you have left someone out. And there's this whole thing about accountability, and there's still this like bad behavior is rewarded because it's funny. You know, there's like the drunk guy at the end of the bar who says like the wrong thing, but it's like, hey, he's been sitting at the end of the bar since 1972. And he's become the mascot, and it's like, no, you got to kick the guy out and make an example. And so yeah, I think that we just need to be like, yes, there's a problem, and I'm part of the problem, and let's talk about it openly.
I can see that. That is
Yeah.
very much a first step. My friends in First Nations tell me that all the time, that you first of all have to admit that there is a problem and you are part of it.
Yeah.
And then you can walk forward from that point. But the first thing is, of course, learning to listen.
Yeah, there's, you know, again, with a lot of those stories and the allegations that have come out, there's a large group of people who are like, I believe you, but there's also a large group of people who are like, prove it. And a few years ago, there were some stories of a guy who ran a very influential website, and he was known for like, you know, beer listings and job postings, and it was running for years, but there was always a rumor that he abused women, and all the women in beer knew it. We all knew the story, and we knew the people who had been abused. And finally, one of his ex-girlfriends had had enough and posted about it. And she posted photos, and people were like, cool, you said you pressed charges against him, show us the forms. Like, they couldn't even believe it. Like, she literally posted pictures of herself, and people didn't believe it. And so we have to stop protecting people because they said, you know, he's a good guy. And you talk to women in beer, and we were all like, no, he's not a good guy. No, none of us have ever trusted him. And I think we have to stop doing that. Like, you know, well, what if she's lying? what if she is? But there's someone else behind her who has experienced it, and we need to like believe it and look into it. But yeah, the amount of people who covered for that guy for a very long time is like astronomical. And I mean, she pressed charges and things still didn't change until she finally was like, here, I got to air it all. So it's, you know, it's been around for a very long time.
Yeah, it's the idea of once you're the victim, you get re-victimized in the process
Yeah.
of justice, which is really an unfortunate aspect.
Yeah, it really is.
I'm curious with everything that's going on, Ren, how you stay grounded through all of this.
I play a lot of Animal Crossing, and I don't know. I mean, I'm just, you know, I'm just back at it, and I'm really like in the thick of it again. But just try and walk away from it every so often and just kind of like exist. I am a huge fan of crappy TV. So I'm always comfort watching things. So I'm currently going through all seasons of Ink Master. If you have ever watched this, you know, if you don't know, don't even bother. It is literally a tattoo competition that is hosted by Dave Navarro, who last I saw wasn't a tattoo artist. He's a rock guitarist, judging people who tattoo. And then they like announce someone as Ink Master. It's as horrible as it sounds. It's basically drama. They just scream at each other all day long, and it brings me great comfort.
Okay.
Yep. That's, I mean, you know what? It's just, it's like comfort stuff. Like I can just kind of glance at it. I don't have to pay attention to it. I can just like be, and I think it's a hilarious show. So yeah. And there's 13 seasons, and I think I'm on like rewatching season 7 or something. So I'm like, yeah, it's cool.
Definitely not something you want to binge watch, eh?
You gotta take breaks. It gets to be a lot, but it's worth it.
Now you had to make a really, really hard pivot because of COVID. You want to share a little bit of that story with us?
Yeah, I mean, 2019, I just traveled like all year, seemingly every day. And you know, the business model was talking to people in person and doing sessions and doing conferences and those things. And once COVID hit, I guess it was like my last in-person event was actually Queen of Craft. So that was March 13th, which was Friday the 13th. And I was supposed to be traveling like the next week. And it was just, you know, things were starting to get canceled. I had travel booked through until I think July or August, and everything slowly got canceled. And it was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And so I basically, I guess like March and April and half of May just kind of hung out. And if you follow me on Instagram, and at that point I was doing the Fashionista series, which came up from a joke because Becca was like, "You never wear these beer shirts." And like, you got to get rid of them. But I was like, I'm gonna wear these beer shirts. And so I took a photo of me wearing a different beer shirt every day, with my favorite track pants in like fashionable ways, and just made it into a whole joke. And was doing what you drinking on Instagram, where I was just, you know, Instagram live and just chatting with friends. And then the George Floyd video came out, and people were like, "We need you. We want to hire you for staff." And I was like, "But we can't do this in person." And so I had to become a Zoom expert seemingly overnight. And so now I've basically used every kind of platform there is for virtual talks and consultations and like whatever. So I've gone from traveling to like, this is it. This is what my square looks like during the day. And it's been great because it also has opened up that I can now travel virtually to different countries. So I've been able, you know, so again, I'm doing a ton of work with the States. I've done stuff in England. I've done stuff with New Zealand. Obviously things that I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise because they would not have brought me out. So it's, yeah, it's been interesting.
See, Terry and Emma, assume that there's much that is worse than being primarily virtual.
It's, well, also you can only see so far with the camera. So there's usually like a cat or a beer right here. So it's like, it's good, you know, and also just not having to drive. Like it's the, you know, the ability to do more and reach more people. So, you know, prior to that, like I did a talk in Cornwall. It ends up being that one event is 2 days because I've got to travel there, and then I've got to do the thing, and then I sleep over, and then I come home the next day. Yeah. Whereas now it's like I can be in 2 countries in a day. So it's definitely, it's a lot more efficient, and it's easier on me because I'm, You know, if I'm tired, it's cool. I'm at home. I just make another cup of coffee. Whereas if I'm tired on the road, like maybe I'm not driving anywhere because I'm too tired to drive. So it definitely feels a lot better, and it's easier on my mental health too. I mean, a lot of the stuff I talk about ends up being super heavy, so it's nice that I'm in my safe space.
Yeah. Which beer are we going to talk about next?
Well, I've only got two of them with me, so I'm gonna say Face for Radio.
Okay.
Um, I love Farwell, and also because it's his Farwell for Hire campaign right now.
Yeah.
Can't go wrong.
Yep. And him and Graham are doing, for those of you who may not have seen it, a live Instagram tasting on Friday night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's a collab with Block 3.
Yes. Yeah. Good tasty stuff.
Now my mind eludes me. The brewery in Ottawa that helped you take your first step to creating the platform for breweries to create inclusiveness.
That would be Dominion City.
Dominion City. Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. So, how's the program going for you?
It's been really good. They are on, this is the third year of the scholarship. So that's the scholarship for underrepresented folks in beer, and it's paired with Niagara College. And it's been really good. So they actually they call whoever wins it the Rentern instead of the intern, and it is paid. So it's an 8-week paid internship or Renternship, and they, you know, there's also money. So there's a bursary with it, and it's really about getting them experience that normally you need experience to get experience. And so they will work, you know, so whoever gets it gets to touch everything in the brewery. And of the 3, it's been 2 women, which is really lovely, because Niagara College always toots their horn about how many women are enrolled in the program. But if a class has 18 people, there are 2 women, and I'm like, you can't toot your horn for 2 women. So it's really nice that it's women who so far are leading the pack on getting that scholarship. But yeah, I think it's really fantastic, and it just changes how people are doing things, and it's also influenced how other breweries are doing things. So there's been a lot of scholarships that have popped up since then, and I think when they did it, like when we rolled it out that first year, people were just like, oh, I don't know if I can do it, because they're already doing it. And it's like, there's room for a multitude of scholarships, and you can do them in a very different way. So I'm also working with North Brewing, which is in Nova Scotia, and they are also doing, this is their 2nd year of the scholarship. And for this one, it is not partnered with a beer school. It's more community based. So whoever applies for it, part of the prize is that there is money that can go towards your schooling, and you can get a job at the brewery, but it doesn't have to be brewing. So there's marketing, and there's like, they have a kitchen attached, so you can be doing food stuff, and there's like these huge pieces, and the ask is that you're actually community based and doing work within your community. And so they do have it within a certain parameter, geographically within Nova Scotia, but it's really awesome the amount of people who are coming forth and saying, you know, I didn't know I could be interested in beer, and doing the interviews are so cool. Like, I have met some really amazing people through it, and they've just, like, all walks of life and different ages too, because again, the only ask is that you are in school, but you don't have to be like ages of 18 to 24. Like, you know, a few people who applied, I think one was 30 and the other one was 33. So it was really cool to just see people saying, I'm going back and like doing these things because I want to help the community and I want to do these things. So it's been cool to see how each brewery takes it and runs with it.
Must be gratifying to see it, the baby steps being taken.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. So how can Kickoff Annex as a community help keep moving these kinds of things forward with you?
I think that just like highlighting and talking about it and educating, because that's always the problem, is that people don't know about things. There was the Celebrating Sisters Indigenous brew that happened a couple months ago, And someone messaged me today being like, can you believe this brewery's like taking the label? And I was like, yeah, that's part of it. Like, so people just don't realize like that, there was a whole movement and we did things with it. And I think that's just kind of taking a look and, not doing, you don't have to do deep dives, like follow a couple of people who do things differently and speak about things. And I think especially right now, with the discovery of the bodies of 215 children in Kamloops, and having to realize that that's one residential school, and that there are so many more, and that story is going to get a lot more grim as time goes by. These are kind of things to pay attention to, because it still amazes me that people were like, I didn't know about it, and it's almost as like ignorance is bliss. So it's just it sucks to read about these things and it sucks to take it on. And if you can't handle it, don't do it. But if you have some capacity and some bandwidth, like just take some quick looks. And for the beer community, like ask questions and see like, why aren't you saying anything, and why aren't you talking about it? Like I spend a lot of time messaging breweries in BC being like, it happened in your backyard, like why are you not talking about it? I think we should all be talking about it, but especially if you are in BC, like there it is. And I think we have to understand that this story is going to continue changing from location to location, as we push for more and things are really looked into. But I don't know. I think that it's that statement, knowledge is power. But there are a lot of people who just don't even want to try for a little bit of power.
I had one of my friends once say to me, I really wish I never talked to you because you're always challenging me. I I understand what you're saying.
Just
Six
yeah,
Nations, Six Nations today. They said to the federal government, so the Mohawk Institute, the first one, is in our backyard. How are you going to help us search the grounds?
yeah.
Because we know it's there.
Well, no, we know the stories.
Yeah.
And I think that it's the thing that really got me is knowing, I think probably like later on, but the last residential school closed in 96, and I was in my second year of university when that happened. And it's to be like, I was a fully functioning adult, and to know that this was happening at this time and not being fully aware of it but not understanding it, and then eventually like really finding out and talking to friends and getting educated back in the day when the internet was not what it is now. So it's like, if I could go and do the research back then, like no one has an excuse now to like not know about it. And I think that we also need to like speak up when people are like, it's cancel culture. Like, we've been talking about Ryerson University and changing the name and those kind of things where people are like, yeah, but it's just a name. And it's like, there's a lot in a name. And there's a lot in the history of that name, because people just take it as a name, right? Like, who's this guy? And it's like, go look into him. He's not a good guy. And we need to understand it. So I think that as time goes on, just scrape, just do a little scraping and see what's there, because there's a lot and it's grim.
So Troy's curious where your leads come from with regards to like breweries that are going to be proactive or reactive.
um they reach out to me. I've been really lucky. There are always periods of time. So I have anxiety, which I'm always super open about. And so my whole fear is like having downtime. And so I'm always like, I gotta go and like look for work. And then something catches on fire in the world, and then it's a stockpile of people coming out for me. Recently, I've been really lucky. So Dr. J, who's in the States, she is a diversity expert and works with the Brewers Association, and she's actually there full time now, and is churning down new work, and she's actually sending it my way. So thanks to her, I am getting some international things that I don't think they even knew my name until like 3 weeks ago. And then some of it is just we've talked in the last 2 years, and they've kind of like said, we'll keep an eye on you and see where you're up to. Um, and then just having enough that I don't know when to shut up. So I'm forever posting stuff and going after people. So I think it helps. It somehow has yet to hinder. And I'm really lucky that people are still coming to me to talk to me about it. But I got declared an expert. And then earlier this year, Food Network Canada declared me as one of the top Black people in Canada to watch. So that really helped. That was free advertising that I also didn't know it happened. And someone messaged me and said, "Did you know?" And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." So I made a list.
I saw that and I didn't reach out because I thought they'd actually interviewed you. And
No,
it wasn't
I
until 2 weeks ago when I was going online. I'm like, they never even talked to her.
nope.
What?
Yeah, they had the photo on file from something else that I had been interviewed for, and someone completely different did the list, and I found it on LinkedIn because someone random tagged me on LinkedIn, and I was like, okay, cool. I don't know who you are, but thanks for this.
I misunderstood Troy's question, so I'm going to go back to it. He's curious the volume of the business coming out of the US. Is it reactive, proactive, or are they just in full damage control?
The the most recent is reactive. Sorry, no, it's proactive, but then has had to been reactive for a few things. So Master Brewers Association of the Americas, so the MBAA, we've been working together for 2 months, but they got named in one of the rap magnet stories, so then we had to react to it. But we had been working together and kind of laying some groundwork. But most places recently have been fairly proactive, but have had things happen in the past where they're kind of trying to clean things up going forward. So it's kind of the like, we're in a good period right now where no one's mad at us, but if they do any digging, they'll be furious with us. So it's a lot of that kind of thing.
That's also kind of the nature of the world that we live in right now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's, if you do enough digging far back, you'll be mad at all of us.
That's true. That's true. I think of the growth that I've done since I was 18 years old.
Right? I'm really glad that technology was not good then.
Well, I jokingly tell people, I said, the first time I met Ren, which is not the way I describe it with you, is she walked into the bar and she decided to try and gaslight the old guy. And they look at me and they go, she's not that way at all. Let that one go.
Glad no one believes it.
Oh, no. There's people that were like, she did. And I'm like, no, she did not do that.
Everyone wants dirt.
Well, the best part is, if you know me, it would have been me gaslighting you.
Yeah.
So, Remy's curious about the big breweries. Do you think that their work culture is generally better?
Yes, but no. But yes. I think that the way that big beer is that it's big beer owns a bunch of little things, and then little guys do what they want. So I do work a lot with Labatt, but I work even more with Mill Street, and Mill Street is owned by Labatt, but is allowed to kind of run free. And it's not, there's no chain where like they get to the end and they get yanked back. So they have quite a bit of freedom to decide how they want to do things. And same with Six Pints, which is Molson. I've done work with them. So they do have like enough freedom to kind of, so each, it ends up being that each small brewery owned by the big guy still just runs on their own. And so if there's a problem with the brewery, like it'll be dealt with, but I haven't seen it. I don't see much of a difference. I think that, at the end it's like, yeah, they have more money, but they can still make horrible mistakes because it's still, it's the same group of people who were there when they got bought.
Yeah. I can see that. Which beer would you, I don't have the other two either, but which beer would you recommend they try next?
I would go with Better Late, the TWB.
TWB, Better Late. Okay. Now, these tend to be your sort of favorite local breweries.
Yes.
So
they are. And also we did the collaboration on Black is Beautiful.
Yeah.
So it was all of those breweries plus me. So it's always an easy pick.
Oh, yeah, of course. But I know that you have spoken highly of all of them in the past,
Yes.
and I have had all of them on the show, and they're wonderful people.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
Graham asked a question. I don't have an answer. He was wondering if Wilfrid Laurier is under any pressure, the university, to change its name.
I haven't seen anything, which I don't know if they're just lucky at this period of time. I mean, Johnny McDonald is always the guy who's being hunted after. I do feel for Old Tomorrow Brewing because their mascot's Johnny McDonald. Way to pick it, guys. A Google search could have told you he was bad choice. Alcoholic and believed in eugenics. He's a winner. Let's put him on our can. But yeah, I haven't heard anything about Laurier.
And I was just thinking, did Charlottesville announced that they're taking down their statue to Johnny McDonald?
Here's open. If you haven't seen the Ryerson statue recently, you should Google that. He's looking like he's having a rough day.
Well, the only statue I pay attention to at the university level is University of Guelph Museum of Art, the bear out front, because I'm always curious what they've done to it next. So
hey, check them out.
Okay, I'll check it out. Now, Shiraj, why don't you ask that question yourself, Shiraj? I'll give you permission to go online.
All right, thanks, bro. Hey, Ren, do you think social media as a tool is more effective when it comes to holding businesses and individuals accountable for all the things that they say and they do, either online, offline, or at the end of the day, is the most effective way to show or for someone to get payback, just people voting with their money?
I think that and I like that question. I think that with social media, that is your intent. So if you post something, it's very hard later to be like, just kidding, because people take screen grabs of things and it's discussed. And I think that if you're putting it out there and you're saying, we're going to be, this kind of good person, and we're going to do these things, and the public sees it and you don't do it, that's when you vote with your money. And I'm going to keep my wallet in my pocket today. And I think that a lot of places that have run into problems, it's because of social media and because of something that they've posted and they've said, we're going to do this. And then they conveniently forget to give you an update. It quite often happens with charity things where they say, oh, 25 cents of every whatever is going here. And then there's never that by the way, this is how much we gave. They're just on to the next thing. And, and so you can at least go back and be like, hey, remember 6 months ago when you said you were doing this thing, what happened with it? And I feel that because of how fast society moves, it is a great placekeeper to go back and see what's happening. And also breweries who are just TNA jokes and these really off color things that they do. And if suddenly they're like, hey, we do a charity thing. You're like, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't go with what you've been doing. So I have some questions. So I think that social media is really fantastic for that.
I'm going to make a comment about Remy's statement. And then if you want to add on to that, feel free to add on to it. Remy, you're absolutely right that some of these people did wonderful and great things, and Canada wouldn't be the country it is today. But we have refused as a people to acknowledge their wrongs as well. And that is part of the process that we need to go through now, is to admit that there's the other side of the history, not the whitewash side of the history that we look at.
And I think that if you haven't read 21 Things You May Not Know About the Indian Act, please do. There are statements from Sir Johnny MacDonald that are unbelievable. He basically is I am out to destroy Indigenous peoples, and I'm going to do it. And the Indian Act of the 1800s still exists and is still enacted today. And so to say what they've done at that period of time, and we can't really bring it over, it's still there. It never went away. So the stuff that he wrote and put into force literally is still going. and there's an entire group of people whose land we are on are being beaten down to this day based on something that someone decided in the 1800s. So yes, there is a period of time where you say that's history, but when the history continues and perpetuates constantly and daily, yeah, it's hard to be like, it's cool. I mean, again, like Johnny Boy was huge on eugenics, which if you look into that, it's not great.
Yeah, and I will say, in fairness, there was an article written by uh, a young lady from one of the First Nations who was going to Ryerson, who wrote about being basically traumatized every day by the name. So, of course, the immediate gut reaction of a white guy was like, whoa, really? And then I read the article and become uncomfortable because she does live this every day.
Yeah.
That name reminds her of everything that was done to her history and her people.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, and I think that people forget too that what is set up at that period of time creates ripples, and there is, you know, generational trauma. There's a million studies on it, that what happened to my family on a slave ship 400 or 500 years ago has seeped its way into my DNA, and there are things that I'm irrationally terrified of that I've never seen in my life that will scare me, and the concept of it will scare me. So, you know, think of those who have gone through the original Indian Act and what has happened to them and what they've passed through to their family in terms of how they've been told to act and how they've been told to talk and what they've been told to show and to what to hide. And there are people today who don't understand why they feel that way, but they know that it originated like 200 years ago.
Graham poses a question. I'll make my statement and then you can reiterate on it. Did the leaders of the past simply reflect the sentiment and thoughts of the voters? No, they reflected the sentiment and thoughts of the people who were in positions of power, and that does not necessarily make it right.
Yeah.
And you've got a lot more to say on that than I'll ever have.
I also think that like the notion of voters at that point, it's not that, right? Like when they're setting up like the political climate as it now is, I don't think they were worried about voters. I think that there's a lot of just land grabs and how do I, you know, power, right? You get power hungry. I think that even if they did reflect the sentiment and thoughts of the voters, like there's a lot of people thinking in really terrible ways, and I think that we definitely do a lot of shoulder shrugging at it. I mean, look at how it is now, like, you know, Trudeau and his whole face forward about how we have to remember what's happened in a dark chapter in history, and it's like, this is the longest dark chapter then. Like it's like there's one hell of a chapter. But you know, be aware that the government is currently suing and fighting residential survivors. So it's like these are pieces that it's like you can say like our thoughts and prayers, but he's trying to silence them. And you know, how many reservations are still on boil water advisories, and some of them have been on for 20 years. So it's even if it's what was then, it's still now.
Always uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah, and I think that we need to have more of them. And I think that we really have to become uncomfortable with our discomfort. And I also think that, especially with beer, right? Like water is such a commodity and we waste it. And to know that for us to be able to drink this, like how much water becomes just waste. And you know, and in Ontario, like granted, it could be 14 hours away, it could be 7 hours away, it could be 4 hours away. There's a group of people who are boiling their water as we're just like running the taps like it's nothing. And so, you know, it's we have to remember that Canada is also sitting on the largest repository of drinkable water, yet somehow not everyone here has access to it.
Which for all of us should be one of the biggest things that we should be screaming about.
Yeah.
Why does that even exist in our society right now?
Yeah.
the technology and the abilities, the money that we have, you know.
Yep.
And there's no easy answer, but there is an
No.
easy answer. Just do it.
And that's the thing, right? I mean, why is the government fighting residential survivors, and why are they fighting those on the res? Like, what is that?
Yeah. And we keep punting it to the future.
And that's, yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, having been in beer for almost a decade, and doing this for just over 3 years, and people always say to me, like, do you think we'll change? And I always say, I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime. And my family notoriously lives to be very old. So I'm like, listen, my grandmother died at 95, and my great aunt died at 100. And I'm like, I don't think it's gonna happen in my lifetime. And I still have like, like 55 years left. Like, I don't, I think that humans are so stubborn. And I think that it's that scene in 2001: A Space Odyssey where the gorillas at the monolith, and they like learn how to be violent. Like, we're still at that point, and we've never understood how to give up any kind of power to have equality. And it's really, I mean, I think at least once a week I turn to Becca and I'm like, I'm cool with that meteorite just hitting, wiping us all out and starting over again. Like, because I don't believe that we can really get to that point. That But I do believe that we can try and improve. So I'm not completely pessimistic, but I don't think that magically we're going to be at that point where everything's hunky-dory in like 5 years.
What was the inspiration for the do better, be better?
I mean, Black kid growing up in Toronto, and sounding like an absolute valley girl and being like a total nerd, and kind of getting some breaks, but also having people say to my face, like, I don't think you're going to succeed at this, and I don't think you're going to get to this point, and you're not going to like make it. And not knowing where I was going to be as I got older. The whole point about do better is like, it's the non-alcoholic version of beer diversity, but it's providing mentorship and leadership for racialized and marginalized kids, kind of like high school to university age, and probably just beyond that, and just putting them in front of people who are like, yo, you can do this thing. Like, don't let anyone tell you can't do it. Like, you really love science? Cool. Here are all the things you can actually do. Because I never got told I could be in beer. I didn't get into beer until I was in my 30s, and I kind of fell into it because we went to a place and happened to be that there was a beer event, and suddenly I was like, oh wow, this is cool and people are nice. Like, I literally didn't know that could be a career. And I have so many friends who are like, yeah, I knew. And I'm like, cool, because you're white. And that's what people tell you. And I wanted to go into editing. I come from a family of teachers, and I was like, I want to be a book editor and hang out in a room and just like read books all day with a red pen. And like, not knowing that there was more, and that I could use my knowledge for more things, and like take that, I have an English degree, but hey, I write letters of apology for like things that breweries have done. Like, and I think that letting folks know that it's not just the traditional trajectory of things that they can do, and also like the point too is to allow them a sounding board for their pitches and their dreams, and someone at least being able to say like, yeah, that sounds really good, but like focus on this piece to tune it up a bit. Because again, like, kids who aren't white or aren't part of the norm aren't listened to in the same way. And that's what I want to do with this. So I'm still taking some time to fine tune it because COVID. So obviously I can't work with the school boards I want to work with, but it's great. I've probably got about 45 people who've signed up to be mentors, and they are just like, name a career. There's someone there, and it's all backgrounds. It's not necessarily BIPOC people as the mentors, but we want to be doing it with BIPOC, LGBTQ plus, like, kids who just don't have a chance. And I say high school to university age because I'm also very aware that not everyone gets to go to university, or not everyone gets to stay in high school. And the point of this is to really just help make some changes in whatever way. Because, my whole thing is like, I have this much patch of the universe, and I want to leave it looking a little better than I found it.
Isn't that an admirable goal that we should all be striving for?
I'm hoping. And I think, if enough of us do it, we end up having these like massive amounts of space that look a hell of a lot better and feel a lot safer.
So I learned something that I was not aware, that you were going to be an editor when you were growing up. What book would I find on your nightstand right now?
Oh man. I don't think I have one. I think I finally took it off my nightstand. It was I was studying for the foundations the foundations of distilling, which I've deferred my exam to November. So that was the only thing that was there. Right now, I've been doing like a lot of heavy reading because I have a book club, which it's really, it's such a bummer of a book club, but there's like really great people and there's beer. So every month on usually the last Sunday, we're reading through different things. So it's like, so you want to talk about race? We did The Company, which is the history of the Hudson's Bay, which like is terrible because just all the indigenous people die. Spoiler. Like, so we actually have a meeting this Sunday, and this book is our first book of fiction. It's been nonfiction up until this point, and this one is Five Little Indians, which happens to be a story of, wait for it, 5 indigenous men who are out of residential schools. We had no idea the book was picked a month and a half ago, so Sunday's gonna be heavy, but there's beer.
Okay. What would be on your playlist right now?
I've broken the Spotify algorithm, so it doesn't know how to deal with me. It's pretty awesome. So if it is left to its own devices, it will be everything and anything. I'm still a big industrial kid, so a lot of Nine Inch Nails, still listening to old Ministry, and then occasionally like Spice Girls, because every so often I just gotta spice up my life.
I like that. That's great. What would you like to tell us about, there it is, my mind eluded me, the beer from Counterpoint?
So I also picked Counterpoint because I'm just a huge fan. And so basically everyone I've picked does amazing things with the community. They are actually all participating in an online course next week, 2 weeks, which is bystander training. And I love Graham. I think he's just such a rad dude, and we've done some great collabs together. So we're also going to be doing another one soon-ish. So
yeah, Graham is a wonderful person. There's a reason I've had him on 3 times.
Yeah, don't tell him I like him though.
Oh, good Lord, your secret's with me. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. He does good work, that's for sure. So.
Yeah, for sure.
So you did the collab, Black is Beautiful with a whole bunch of people, but given a choice, what would be your favorite beer to brew as a collab with somebody?
I'm a sucker for an IPA, which I think almost every collab I've done. So I've done a lot of collabs. I've stopped keeping track. The last time I did keep track, I was in the 30s for numbers of collabs, and I would say that 90% of them have been IPAs of like any style. I do really love West Coast because West Coast is the best coast. But it's it's mainly IPAs. And it's just like playing around with hops. I'm open to almost anything. Really got into Sabro last year because it's just like those tropical notes are like so juicy. But yeah, that's always my favorite to go to.
So I've asked this of a number of people. If you could spend a day brewing with anybody, who would it be?
Garrett Oliver.
Yeah.
That man has a million stories. And I've been really lucky to sit on a panel with him and to also meet him. And then also for him to remember me the next time he ran into me, which I totally fangirled and then died a lot. yeah, I feel like his stories, there's just so much with him. I don't know if I'd actually get any brewing done. I'd just be like, and then tell me when this happened. So yeah, I would pick him.
But isn't that what it's supposed to be about? The
Yeah, but
relationship and
I
the,
don't even know if we'd like make it to like get close to the, to the equipment. I mean, he's been brewing for like more than 30 years, and just he's such a grand statesman. Like, yeah, I would pick him in a heartbeat.
and if I were to ask you who your role model was, who would that be?
That's my mom.
I'm so looking forward to meeting her. She sounds like such a wonderful
You
person.
know what? She's super rad, and like I think that when I started doing all of this and got trolled for the first time, which is like super crushing. Like your first time getting trolled is like soul crushing and terrible. And I just remember her being like, "Listen, if everyone loved you, there'd be no challenge, and you wouldn't know that you were doing a good thing." And she was like, "If someone's mad at you, you're on the right path." And like everyone else was like, "You're such a good person," and my mom was just like, "Yo, someone's got to hate you." Like, and I just, and and then the next time it happened, she was like, yeah, they're stupid, don't worry about it. But that first time really stuck with me, because she was like, if there is no challenge in what you're doing, why are you doing it? So, and also she drinks craft beer. Like it's so good. I got to see her the other day, like for the first time in forever. And I took her a bunch of beer, and she was just like super excited. So it's just like, we can connect with it, and like I'm always leaving stuff for her, and it's so nice. Like as I get older, my relationship with her is like it's so good. And it's just like I always feels really cheesy. I'm like, good, but I don't subscribe to the like my mom's my best friend, because like your mom should never be your best friend. She should still be able to like give you the look that you're like, oh, I'm sorry. uh like, but I think that we're finally at this point, where we just really enjoy each other's company, and I can just like tell it like it is, and she can tell it like it is. And when she's got to give me that like rah mom thing, it's not like you're a good person and everyone should love you. It's like, no, someone should hate you.
Leave it to your mom to
Right.
just put you in your place, right?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Someone's got it.
Yeah. Yeah. I asked my guest last week, because the second time I went into business for myself, my mom's comment was not, on the surface doesn't sound supportive, but it was out of concern. Why can't you just work a 9 to 5 job like everybody else?
Yeah, I mean, like my mom worked for me for a while too, and like kind of organized some stuff behind the scenes, and she was just like, yeah, I think this is what you got to do, because that was the other thing too, right? Like the only rule she ever had was that I had to go to university, because again, family of teachers. Um, and then she also was like, don't go into finance, which I then promptly went into finance. But it was like, I'm not still in finance. So, but yeah, I mean, I really love the support. And I mean, obviously Becca is like hella supportive. And if it weren't for her, this company wouldn't exist, because I'd probably have a real job. Um, but yeah, I think that it's been great to like have people who aren't just like, yeah, you're great. It's like I like to have people be like, that was stupid. Why'd you do that?
There should always be those moments where your friends look at
Yeah,
you and go, just a minute while I get my phone. This will be great on YouTube.
right. It's the fork in the outlet moment. Like, do you think this is gonna work? Yeah, try it.
Yeah. Everybody has to have friends like that.
Yes. Yeah.
What would you like us all to take away from this conversation tonight, Ren?
Um, it's not that hard to be a good person. And if you get it wrong, you can still apologize and try and reconfigure. And if you fail at it, you didn't really fail at it. You just had a hiccup.
Thank you for taking this time and sharing with us what's going on right now. It's always I behind the scenes, I picture you as one of my strongest fans. So, but it's always I'm always grateful that you're willing to share your story and share your stories with us. So thank you, Ren. We totally
Oh, my
appreciate
pleasure.
it. So,
I love it. It's always good to see all of you.
yeah.
Megan, happy 40th.
That
Also,
wasn't-
nice sweater over there.
Yeah. Remind everybody next week that Cam is going to be on.